Are there any major ET events expected to occur in the very near future?
I thought the question was going to be, can you feel your underpants?
That's
but then only once it's asked do you actually know the answer.
That's after the break. But yeah, is there anything expected in the near future?
Oh, you betcha. And then I also have a very interesting dichotomy between intel that I'm getting from Pete Peterson, which Corey's people don't seem to think there's any credence to it at all, but yet Pete is very adamant that it's true. And if Pete's version of disclosure happens, and there may be some faction that's working on that the other factions don't know about, that is going to be unfrickin' believable, because that would involve us being introduced to multiple extraterrestrial groups in some kind of major social event. And supposedly, the ETs have already said, and again, this is not stuff that Corey agrees with, so I'm kind of crossing the lines here, but this is intel that I'm getting, so I shouldn't just only say what one person is telling me.
Right.
I should be open about everything that I'm hearing. What I'm hearing is that the ETs do not want to talk to quote-unquote real news. They want to talk to people who actually have been doing the homework and studying this. And so they're going to want to talk to people like you, Jimmy, and they're going to want to talk to people like me. And so Pete is already working on trying to get us press passes for when this event takes place.
Interesting. 2017? 2017?
Who knows? I mean, it's supposedly, if the plan that Pete's talking about tells me is true, it probably won't be more than 1 year at the most before this happens. And that's stunning.
Now, is this on the partial disclosure side? Because this sounds a little more dramatic.
Absolutely not. What Pete is describing is full disclosure.
Right.
It's we hear everything. It's we get introduced to all these beings in a major event. They have a place to stay here. They have their own accommodations that allow them to be comfortable and safe. And they come out and they, in a protected way, they introduce themselves to us. And there's multiple groups that apparently have signed on to this. Now, again, I've tried to talk to Corey about this, and he said, it's not true, it's not true, it's not true. Okay. It may not be true. And it may be that Pete is being told something that's not true.
Right.
But even if the version that Corey is telling me is true, it's still very exciting, because we got to remember, too, Corey has been given the mushroom treatment, and he acknowledges that. There's starting early this year, and we're doing a 2016 recap. It was only earlier this year that he started to have a lot of information withheld from him, because they're so close now to making some really big moves that we couldn't be told what those moves were, because it would ruin the surprise against the Cabal. And so maybe Pete's scenario is one of them, and Corey just isn't on a need-to-know basis. I don't know. But we are getting really, really interesting stuff about the idea that the Cabal is going to announce advanced ancient ruins, 11, 12,000, maybe even 16,000-year-old ruins that they found under the ice in Antarctica, and that those Antarctic ruins are going to be more advanced technologically than what we have now. And that will, if they do it, that will be a huge distraction that they are hoping, the Cabal is hoping, would be sufficiently distracting to get the public thinking about something completely different and not in going after the Cabal.
Right.
So when they really knew their back was up against the wall, which it is on many, many levels, there's all kinds of precedent now for lawsuits against mega banks.
Right.
Some of the people that were actually the CEOs are now starting to be sued, which means that there's a jurisdictional precedent for them to actually be accountable for what they did, instead of just compartmentalizing it as saying, oh, that's corporate debt. It's not my debt. That's all going to start to happen. So they are out of time. Their own members are turning against them in droves. They need something. They need something big.
Is this, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm just looking at the clock here. So is there some indication to them that we are able to handle this, which has always been the question, right?
I don't think they want us to handle this. I think they want to create the equivalent of a mass trauma. But if they can do it in a way that's really awesome and sci-fi,
right,
then there will be certain groups that traumatize, and that will be primarily religious fundamentalists and scientists.
Sure.
But most other people will be extremely excited.
I would
But
think
there are
so.
going to be groups that get very reactionary and very angry and think that it's all a hoax. And, there may be aspects of it that are hoaxed, because let's look at this. One of my insiders is all over this Antarctica story. This is not Corey, it's somebody else, the guy that actually gave me a lot of the intel in Ascension Mysteries. And he said that they've had 30 years to be poking around in the ice. They could have set this all up. And actually Corey confirmed that. One of the things I'm going to write into Endgame Part 3 that I haven't published yet is that although the Cabal has found all these bodies of giants that are 11, 12 feet tall with elongated skulls, just like we see in giant skeleton records from all over the Earth, which I put out in the Ascension Mysteries video that everybody can watch for free. If you see what they're doing, they're actually removing all those what they're now calling pre-Adamite bodies. The pre-Adamites are being taken out, and what they're leaving behind is the human servants that look like us. So they're going to try to spin this as if Atlantis was habitated by people that look like us, not by people that look like giant extraterrestrials.
Right, right.
So they're going to try to make this as conventional as possible, but it will be an enormous game changer. And so the MIC SSP guys were telling Corey and me, you guys have got to jump on this. You've got to publicize this immediately, or you will get scooped. And they will do it before you, and then you're going to look like you're riding their coattails.
Yeah, there you go.
And we worked our asses off, and we got it out there, and a couple hours after the article came out is when they started to roll out this Antarctic Atlantis thing.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Mainstream tabloid media.
Pretty crazy timing, and we'll talk about all of that. Stay right there, David. We'll wrap up with Antarctica.